It's called Voice Acting Mastery. So you can check it out at voiceactingmastery.com. You can also go to the iTunes store and download it for free. Search for my name or for Voice Acting Mastery, you'll find it. So I love to talk with people about what it takes to work in the industry as a professional, either as a voice actor or a screenwriter, director, producer, or however. I have a feeling that many of you might fantasize or dream about working in the industry, and so I love talking about what it takes to actually work as a professional in any sort of capacity in the entertainment industry. So that's the first subject that I love talking about. The second subject I love talking about is storytelling and how storytelling works and why we enjoy storytelling so much. Some of you may be familiar with my mythology scholarship. I'm a mythology scholar, and I give presentations at academic conferences and film festivals and conventions about mythology and how mythology affects pop culture storytelling. So that's the other subject I love talking about, because it sort of explains why you dress up as the characters, right? It's a ritual for you to put yourself in alignment with the wisdom of the story that you appreciate so much. So I love talking about mythology, and I love talking about what it takes to work as a professional in the industry, but I'm also happy to answer whatever other questions you might have.
Well, I'm going to start off with one question, and that is that you talked about the mythology, right? Well, what is your area of expertise with mythology? And I just found out about this podcast yesterday, going to be downloaded. Do you do the podcast on mythology too, or just the...
I will be doing the podcast on mythology soon.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the Voice Acting Mastery podcast has been going every other week for almost 4 years. That's a lot of work. And so I've had to dial it back to once a month, but don't worry, there's 100 episodes to listen to. There's plenty to listen to catch up, right? And part of the reason for me dialing back the voice acting podcast to once a month is so that I have time to start working on my mythology podcast. In addition to some other voice acting services, shall we say, that I want to reach out. I want to expand my Voice Acting Mastery website with new content, new classes that I can offer. I already offer classes both in Los Angeles and online at Voice Acting Mastery, but I want to expand those offerings. And the only way for me to be able to do that is to put some extra time in my schedule, since there's a limited number of hours in the day, to put a little extra time in my schedule by backing off to once a month. So that's going to give me the freedom to expand my offerings both in voice acting and to start up my podcast in mythology as well.
So with mythology, we'll start on that for a second. Do you see, I guess you do see, what are the similarities between the ancients creating stories about gods or finding the stories of gods or seeing them, and the mythology that goes with it, and our modern storytelling as it plays? Shia LaBeouf once said he wanted to do Transformers because Transformers were his gods. Those were his Hercules, those were his Samsons, to put words in his mouth. Where do you see that truth or not truth?
So my study of mythology, basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking for patterns that I can see in storytelling, in pop culture storytelling, because I believe that mythology, and specifically when I use the term mythology, what I'm talking about is the storytelling aspect of a religion. So religions are very complicated things, and they have all sorts of different aspects. They have sacred spaces, rituals, traditions, theology. But one aspect of a religion that usually lasts the longest is the story. So we may not know exactly how they practice their rituals at the Oracle at Delphi, but we have the Greek mythology, we have their stories. That tends to be what lasts the longest. And it's those stories that end up cropping up in our pop culture storytelling over and over again. So, for example, in America, we tend to write about superheroes, but in Japan, they tend to write about giant robots. Woo. Why is this, right? Well, it turns out that there are good mythological reasons why creators in both countries create pop culture heroes differently in each country. So that's sort of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those patterns in storytelling and trying to tease out the mythological influences on those patterns. And it usually has to do with the religious traditions influencing pop culture storytelling. So I'm looking, and my goal in all of this is twofold. One is to help creators expand their creativity, right? By expanding the buffet of possible stories available, going outside of your native traditions and maybe looking at others and seeing how other people tell stories. It helps broaden the buffet and gives us more diversity in storytelling just from an artistic standpoint. So that's the first goal, is to expand one's artistry. But the second, and I would argue maybe the most important goal, is self-actualization, is actually self-improvement. It is my firm belief that we become the stories we tell ourselves. The stories that we repeat to ourselves over and over again tend to manifest in our lives. So, if we want to change the course of our life, it behooves us to understand and be aware of the stories that we hold close to our hearts. Okay? And so, in order to be the authority for your own life, it is good to author it, to write it the way you want it. And so by understanding these stories, you can start incorporating and adopting the stories that mean the most to you. That's usually why people dress up like Jedi, right? Because they're trying to incorporate the wisdom of the story that they're subconsciously attracted to, and they don't know why. I just love this character so much. That's why I'm here. I'm here to explain to people on a conscious level why they are subconsciously attracted to a certain story or a certain character. Because when it's conscious, then you can make decisions. You can make conscious choices about how you want to deal with it, either as a creator or personally in your life as well.
That's fascinating. I'm going to say I'm a bright, cheerful guy, but I'm really, I love Alucard as one of my favorite anime characters. Speaking of which, we do have a microphone here. If you have questions for Crispin, please start lining up and we'll get to them. I've got one more question I want to ask myself that I've always wanted to ask.
Walk, don't run to the exit.
Be polite. Be polite. This is a hospitable city. Show some hospitality. Crispin, what you started on is just so fascinating, and we could do a whole day talking about that, and it sounds like you do. So.
I have an entire website called mythologyandmeaning.com where I list all the different presentations that I do. It's split up into 3 different categories: animation mythology, film mythology, video game mythology. If you go to the animation section, which is the one where I have the most presentations, there's a trailer there for my presentations that you can check out. The film mythology classes are mostly about, or presentations are mostly about sci-fi and fantasy films, and the video game stuff is still under development. But hopefully I'll be able to get the podcast out in the next couple months so that I can have a more regular update talking about storytelling in films.
Excellent. And what is the URL for your voice acting?
A voice acting master.
Yes.
voiceactingmaster.com. And again, if you go to crispinfreeman.com, there are little links that say if you are interested in voice acting, go to voiceactingmaster.com. If you are interested in my mythology scholarship, go to mythologyandmeaning.com. The Googles help immensely, I swear.
Yeah. So here's my question. It might be a weird question. It might be one you hear a million times. I don't know. When you're creating a character, when you're creating a character specifically for anime, are you looking at and paying attention to how the character is portrayed tonally in the original anime, in the Japanese? Or are you looking at what the character is, looking at the script, and working from that point of view? Or is it a blend?
I guess it's a blend. I absolutely try to watch the Japanese show before I start to dub it. When I can. I can't always get my hands on it ahead of time. But when I can, I do, because as an actor, I feel that the more information I have, the more power I have as an artist to make good choices. When I'm dealing with a deficit of information, then it's hard to make my acting specific. And good acting is about specificity. And if I don't have enough information,